Welcome back, survivalists. So inflation is getting out of control in our country. Just the other month, the Federal Reserve reported 6.2% inflation, which is far higher than the around 3% inflation that we've seen in the last couple of years, and the average of about we've seen about 2% inflation in the last 10 years. The average for the last 100 years about 3% inflation. We're now at 6.2% inflation. And most likely those numbers are completely wrong. It is most likely much, much higher than that. I'm going to go into that today, exactly why that is. And Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, recently came out and saying that he thinks inflation is going to continue to rise, and that the Federal Reserve is retiring the word transitory to describe these higher levels of inflation. They're not going to describe them as temporary anymore. He thinks that it's going to go up as well. Now, on this channel, one rule that I have is that I don't like making predictions about what's going to happen in the future and kind of fear-mongering and kind of scaring people in order to get views, right? You see that a lot in the prepping community where people say stuff like, immigrants are taking over the country, do these things now, or we're going to have looting and rioting all over the country, do this now, right? I don't want to make those types of videos. That's kind of one of my rules. But I think in this case, now that the chairman of the Federal Reserve, the man in charge of how much money we print, has come out and said that he thinks that we're going to have higher inflation rates, I think it's okay for me to make a prediction video like that as well. So today I'm going to go over why these numbers are almost certainly low, what is causing these numbers, why I think the inflation is going to get much higher in this country, and what you can do to try to mitigate some of the damage that you are going to be feeling because of this inflation. And then at the end, I'm going to be doing kind of a Q&A and answering your questions about this as well. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these articles I want to cover today. So the first one here is talking about Jerome Powell and his comments regarding inflation. So it says here, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell retires the word transitory in describing inflation. The nation's economic steward said he'll back off using the word transitory to describe the fast pace of price increases as Federal Reserve policymakers acknowledge the increasing risk of persistent inflation. Persistent inflation. And Jerome Powell said, I think it's probably a good time to retire that word and try to explain more clearly what we mean. Powell acknowledges that the risk of higher inflation has increased. And you can actually go and watch his full comments to Congress about this, and he describes it in a little bit more detail. And up until this point, they have been saying it's transitory, meaning that the increase to 4%, 5%, 6% inflation is temporary, and that they expect it to drop back down to 2%, 3%, which is really where they want to keep it at. He's essentially saying now that the Federal Reserve has no control over inflation, that it is much higher than they want it to be, and they can't stop it from where it is right now. So it's out of control. It is literally the definition of out of control. They cannot control inflation right now. And it's pretty concerning that it's going to go up. Now, I want to show you these numbers here. So this is how they report inflation, and they use the CPI, Consumer Price Index. It's essentially a basket of prices of goods that consumers use, and this is the basket that they measure the prices of, determine if inflation is going up or down. And you see over the last 10 years, we're right now at about 6.2%. We have been hovering around 2%. We actually went below 2% for quite a while there, which is absolutely fantastic. We as consumers want low inflation. I mean, actually, we want zero inflation and even deflation. There's an argument that deflation would be very helpful to us as consumers. You can see down here that in September, they reported 5.4% inflation. October, they reported 6.2%. November, they haven't reported those numbers yet, but it is almost certainly going to follow that trend and be much higher. And so what this really means, 6.2%, this means over the previous 12 months. So from October of last year to October of this year, your money has lost 6.2% of its value. So if you had $100,000 in your savings account over the last 12 months, you just lost $6,200 worth of purchasing power. It's effectively the same. You lost $6,000 by holding on to your money. Now, you can go, when you look at monetary policies, most countries have inflationary currencies, and the argument is that they don't want the consumers, they don't want us saving our money. They want to have inflation as an incentive for us to go out and spend our money rather than hoarding it, because it's losing value, and that's going to help stimulate the economy. That's the argument that they make. I don't like that argument at all, because a lot of consumers don't fully understand that, and they still save money, right? Robert Kiyosaki says, if you're a saver, you're a loser. And that sounds harsh, but he's saying that if you're saving money, you're losing money by saving it. And it's very frustrating. You know, my grandfather passed away in 2006. My grandmother inherited about $200,000. So she had about $200,000 in a bank account when he passed away. She's still alive right now, and that money, she was too scared to invest it at all. And she still has the majority of that $200,000. So from 2006 to 2021, at around a 3% inflation rate, she's probably lost about half that money, probably close to $100,000 that she's lost because she's saving that money. And this is why I really don't appreciate inflation. I would love it if we did transition over to a non-inflationary currency. And you can see here, if we go to the 25-year chart, we are at an all-time high. In fact, this is the highest CPI rating that we've had in over 30 years, and is going to go up. Jerome Powell said it's most likely going to go up. Now, if we go and look at the max chart here, if we go back, we can see that we had very wild inflation swings here. And in 1980, I think this is really interesting. In 1980, we saw almost 15% inflation in a 12-month period. So what that means is, if in 1979, you had $100,000, your life savings saved up in 1979, by the end of 1980, you lost $15,000 effectively. You effectively lost $15,000 worth of purchasing power because of this inflation. And you may want to look at this and say, well, look, it's not that bad. At least we're not seeing what we had in 1980 or the 1940s, 1950s. But here's the thing. How they figure CPI, it's a mathematical formula, right? And how they weight certain things to other things is a basket of commodities that they measure. That formula has changed since 1980. It has changed several times in several major ways. If we were to measure CPI the same way we did in 1980, people are saying we would be at 10-15% inflation rate right now. So if we were to measure it the same way as we did back here, we would be at these much, much higher inflation rates. And a lot of people speculate that there is some gerrymandering, there's some manipulation of this formula to make inflation appear far less than it actually is. And to kind of show this point, I actually found this from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, right? This is bls.gov. This talks about the formula that they use to measure CPI and all of the revisions that they've made to it. And some of them may be valid revisions as well, but you just have to understand, when you're looking at this chart, we most likely are at these 15% inflation rates. I want to kind of go over a few of these revisions. So Consumer Price Index was really established in 1919. They start off by measuring various goods and services purchases by consumers in 32 major cities. This is going to be a collected prices of major groups: food, clothing, rent, fuel, housing, furniture, and miscellaneous. 1940, they made some pretty big revisions to it. 1953, they made some revisions to it, added samples of medium and small cities as well. So not just the major cities. They're going to smaller cities as well, but more rural areas. Adding restaurants and meals to it, adding home ownership costs to CPI. 1964, they made revisions to it. 1978, they made revisions to it. And you can see here, this is all after this big spike in 1980. They made even more revisions. 1987, updated the samples of items, outlets, and areas, redesign the CPI housing survey, improve sampling, data collection, data processing, and statistical estimation methods. So their entire how they're sampling these things and the formula that they're using and how they're weighting different things has completely changed. Huge revisions 1987. 1998, they made even more revisions, extensively revised item classification system, implemented new housing index estimates, used computer-assisted data collection. Between 1998 and 2018, they made a lot of revisions. 2018, some more major revisions to it. And I tell you all of this just so that you don't look at this chart and say, oh, well, at least it wasn't as bad as 1980. We may even be as bad as this big peak here in the 1950s. They've done manipulation to how we calculate CPI right now. And there's a lot of economists that say that CPI is nonsense at this point. It's not even valid anymore. Because think about this. Well, let me go show you some other stats here. I don't want to go to that one just yet. All right. So this is the S&P 500 over the max lifetime here. The S&P 500 is up about 30% in the last 12 months. You look at home prices. Home prices are up about 20% in the last, about 20% in the last 12 months. So for you to purchase a stock and invest in your 401k, you now have to spend 30% more. For you to buy a home, you have to spend 20% more. Rent is about the same. It's about 20% increase across the board as well. But they don't include those numbers in the current CPI formula. You need to understand that. So if you wanted to buy a home, you would think that you would factor that into inflation. But that 20% increase, they're not factoring that into CPI. So like just to say that, oh, well, it's only 6% when home prices are up 20%, investing in your 401k is up 30% to make investments like that, to buy companies. CPI is nonsense. It is almost certainly far higher than 6.2%. It all depends on how you calculate that. Many people who I respect, many economists are saying that we're closer to 10% inflation right now. As it like impacts your life, in terms of gas prices and buying groceries and meals, everything else. When's the last time you went to a grocery store and had a bill lower than $100? It's been like a couple of years now since I had a grocery bill lower than $100, maybe 2 years now. Now, why are we suddenly seeing this huge spike of inflation, right? That's a really valid question. And it comes down to this. So this is the money supply M0. And I want to pull up a definition of this real quick. The monetary base, or M0, is the total amount of currency that is either in general circulation in the hands of the public or in the form of commercial bank deposits held in the central bank. So this is essentially the total supply of money that we have in the country. And if you zoom out, we kind of grew at a pretty consistent pace. Then suddenly we started getting really buck wild with how much money we were printing and giving away essentially as stimulus checks and investing in companies. The whole too big to fail nonsense came around this time, and the Federal Reserve just started printing money out of thin air in order to give us these stimulus checks, in order to bail out these huge banks and give everybody money. This is what is causing inflation, right? We have inflated the currency supply. The increases in our daily lives of gas and groceries, that is a lagging indicator. The inflation is when we inflated the supply of money. We're just now seeing the repercussions of that months and years later. And we can see that huge spike. We've almost doubled the entire supply of US dollars. The entire supply of US dollars, we've almost doubled that in just the last 2 years here. We're come close to it, kind of depending on where you measure it. That is what is causing the inflation. Now, before anybody tries to get political here as well, I've heard some people say, oh, it's all, Biden printing all this money, or it's all Trump. Most of this was under Trump during 2020, but Biden has continued that. A lot of this is still under Biden. They're still continuing these policies. And if you go back, I mean, Republicans and Democrats alike are presidents throughout this time period. So it really isn't political. It's just part of the game that we've been playing for the last 20 plus years. And this is why we have inflation right now. Now, there's some other levers that influence it, such as the interest rates of the Federal Reserve, how much money we're borrowing as a nation. There's a lot of other smaller factors, but this is the biggest factor, is how many dollars are in circulation. You can't print money indefinitely. There are countries that have tried that. Germany tried that, I think, during World War II. We have Venezuela, we have Zimbabwe, we have these countries, these small countries that get carried away to start printing money out of thin air, and their dollars lose value. That's what happens. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now, and why it's going to get worse. So I want to show you, do you guys see any correlation here between this chart going back 25 years and the S&P 500, right? So right around 2008 to right around 2009, we started printing money like crazy. Right around 2009, we started making new all-time high after all-time high after all-time high in the stock market, right? And you can see a very direct correlation between these two charts here and the stock market. This is why the stock market has gone up so much. It's because the value of the dollar is decreasing. CPI or not, the value of the dollar is decreasing. Let's take a look at the average housing cost as well. Does that chart look familiar? You can see very clearly see correlations between the average housing cost and the amount of money that we're printing, right? This is inflation that we're seeing here. I mean, just look at that. You can't even argue against that. You see the exact same peaks and valleys between the housing cost and the stock market and the amount of money that we're printing. Because as the value of your dollar decreases, you need more dollars in order to buy these other assets. I mean, that's just how it goes. Now, I had some people commenting, well, let's talk about what should you do with your money. And I had somebody comment like that I've made videos in the past saying I'm not a fan of gold and silver. And I'm not a fan of you investing gold and silver and having physical gold and silver in your home to be prepared for emergencies, because just how unliquid it is. You typically don't go to your neighbor and sell them gold. That's not very common. If somebody came to me with a gold bar or a gold coin, I would have no idea how much it's worth. So you really have to go to like a pawn shop or one of these We Buy Gold stores, and they generally don't give you market price because they are resellers. They're buying it at a discount, then upselling it or raising the price, and that's how they make their profit. So for you to get out of gold costs you money. Sometimes just for you to buy that gold, you have to pay a broker fee in order for you to buy that amount of gold. And during a hurricane or a tornado or a blizzard or a winter blackout or any of these things, having gold and silver really isn't going to do you all that much good. But buying gold in order to protect yourself against inflation, surprisingly, is not all that great either. So take a look at the average housing cost, take a look at the average, the stock price, the stock market. You would expect gold to be doing a similar pattern, wouldn't you? But that's not what you see. If you go back over the last 20 years of gold prices, gold is actually right around where it was 10 years ago, despite all the inflation that we've seen over the last 10 years, despite all the money that we're printing. If we were to subtract inflation from this, if inflation did not factor into this price, gold would actually be going down over the last 10 years. And right now, it's almost exactly where it was 10 years ago, give or take on what day or whatever you invest in. Now, gold did have a huge run in, like, I believe the 90s. Yeah, it had a huge run here in the 90s and fantastic for you. But, before that, you had a relatively flat period of time and actually went down a little bit for a couple of years, maybe 10 years or so, you had a really great run, and then it's just kind of all over the place. And let's look at silver as well. So this is the 20-year chart of silver. Silver is down over the last 10 years despite all of this inflation. If you were to subtract, 6% from this month, even to subtract CPI, silver would be way, way down. And if you're looking for investment opportunities, you're giving up on opportunity cost by investing in a lot of these, because you could have had 30% returns just by buying the stock market, just by buying the S&P 500. You could have 20% returns by investing your money in real estate. I'm not a fan of buying precious metals like that. That's just the truth of it. Let's zoom out to 50 years. I bet you probably had a run in the 90s. I don't even know. Let's take a look. Yeah, not really. I mean, for most of silver, it's essentially gone level. Now, interestingly, it did start going up right around when we started printing all that money. It had a big run, but it hasn't even kept up with inflation. It's still gone down relatively. So I'm personally just not a big fan of precious metals. For you owning them, it's very hard. They're very illiquid during a serious emergency. During even if you had like a month-long power outage in your state, let's say. Right, in Texas, they had, I think it was like some areas were up to 3 weeks without power during the winter of last year, during the winter blackout. If somebody came to me, hey, I see you got a gas generator, I'll give you a gold bar for that gas generator, I'd say no. Like, I don't know how much a gold bar is. I don't know how to authenticate that. And a gas generator is far more valuable. I wouldn't give up a gas generator during a blackout like that for a gold bar or anything. I just don't really see the benefits of gold. Now, somebody commented before saying that they thought the silver was the best performing asset of 2020. Well, actually, I think Bitcoin is the best performing asset of 2020. Bitcoin, I want to go down this road too much, but if you're looking for a way to protect yourself from inflation, cryptocurrencies are another asset class that you can invest in. All right, so that's kind of my take on this. All right, so how do you protect yourself, right? That's the big question. So here's the thing with inflation. Anybody who is a wage earner, you are effectively getting a pay decrease right now. Even if we go off of CPI, 6.2%, it's most likely much higher. It's probably closer to 10%. But if you're not at least getting a 6.2% raise at your job, you're getting a pay cut right now. And every single year, if inflation is 3% and you're getting a 2% pay increase every year, you're effectively getting a 1% pay decrease, not an increase, right? And there's an argument to say that a lot of businesses like inflation because they can effectively pay their employees the exact same amount for years and decades, but the employees think that they're getting a pay raise every single year. So if you are a wage earner, you have to go to your boss and tell them, hey, I need a raise just to keep up with inflation. And actually, I want it higher than inflation. And if you went off the CPI number saying, hey, CPI is 6.2%, but I want an 8% raise, even that may effectively still be a pay decrease if the actual number is 10% inflation, not 6.2%. So why do I think inflation is going to go up even higher? I think it's going to go up because of these comments by Jerome Powell saying that they're no longer going to be calling it transitory. So if you are an employee, you have your employer, you have employees, you've probably not given them a pay increase to keep up with inflation because you believe that these numbers are transitory and that they're going to go back down, that it's a temporary spike in inflation. But now that they've acknowledged that it is not temporary, this higher rates of inflation are here to stay. Employers are going to have to start raising their prices and also paying their employees more just to keep up with inflation. Many companies have not increased their prices of services, products, and goods. They've been kind of riding this out, seeing if the prices go back down, hoping that it's related to the pandemic, the spike in prices. But Jerome Powell is saying, no, it's not temporary. This is permanent. So what we're going to see over the next 6 months is companies are going to start compensating by increasing their goods and services. They've been watching this on the sideline. They now know that this is permanent. They have to increase their prices in order to stay profitable. They have to increase their employees' cost, their wages, in order just to keep them afloat and keep them at the current wages to fight against inflation. So this means that all prices are going to rise up even more because of this. So this is only the start. We are going to see higher inflation rates. CPI may even get to 10%. That's very possible. CPI may get to 10%, which means that the actual inflation rate may be closer to 15 or 20%. It's going to get out of control here pretty quickly, which is pretty wild. So what can you do to protect yourself from this inflation? Maybe protect yourself isn't even the right word. I don't know if you can, but what can you do to mitigate the damage from inflation to you and your household? So one thing is that you don't want to hold on to cash any longer than you need to. As soon as you get cash, you need to put it in an asset that appreciates with inflation. So let's say you had $100,000. Let me get my calculator out for this one. Let's say you have $100,000 in your bank account, and you're seeing 10% inflation. That means you're losing $10,000 a year from that. So $10,000 divided by 12 months is you're losing $833 a day by keeping your money in cash. If you had $100,000 at 10% inflation, divide that by 30 days in a month, you're losing $27 a day. A day, you're just burning this money, you're throwing it away, you're flushing it down the toilet because you're keeping your money in a savings account and not investing it in an asset that appreciates with inflation. And there's really three main assets that are worth investing in my opinion. One is going to be real estate. Real estate obviously is a little bit harder to invest in. It's a little bit more time consuming. You have to pay a lot more fees. So, kind of take that with a grain of salt. And a lot of people may be weary about buying real estate right now, but you need to understand that real estate has gone up because of inflation. That's a big factor in it. Real estate has gone up 20%, and let's say inflation is actually 10%. So maybe about half of that rise is because of inflation. I honestly think real estate is going to continue to go up. What we're seeing now is a lot of like hedge fund managers and a lot of corporations, they're looking to diversify their portfolio by investing in real estate right now. So there's still going to be a huge demand. They're actually buying residential real estate. You actually have other countries, companies in other countries like China, buying residential homes in Canada. That's a big thing right now. Canada jacking up their prices as well. So a lot of people, a lot of corporations are looking to get into residential real estate. So real estate, I think, is an asset that appreciates with inflation. Simply putting money in the S&P 500, that obviously it's a very strong correlation with inflation. I showed you that. That is going to continue to appreciate with inflation. And then cryptocurrencies as well. I believe that they also appreciate with inflation relative to the US dollar. I don't want to talk about cryptocurrencies too much, but I am a big fan of them. They are here to stay. We are now getting some policies about cryptocurrencies, which is a good thing. We're getting some regulations, which is what we all want. We now have a Bitcoin futures ETF that was approved, and you can invest in that in like your 401k. And cryptocurrencies are going to put banks out of business. And they are absolutely going to change everything. And they are here to stay. So they are a very valid asset class. And feel free to actually look at those at a much deeper level. But what you don't want to do is keep your money in cash. As soon as you get a paycheck, it sounds scary, but you need to invest that money. Keep a little bit as like an emergency fund so you can pay your bills, but you really want to get it. As soon as you get it, it's like a melting ice cube or a melting snowball. You got to put it in somewhere before it fully melts away. And that's really just the biggest thing that you can do to protect yourself from inflation. Another thing is you can do get into a different line of work. If you are a wage earner, which is the vast majority of people, I'm self-employed, right? I have YouTube. I'm also a full-time real estate agent. So as real estate prices go up, since I'm commission-based, my commission also goes up. With YouTube, I get paid largely off of advertisements on my videos. And with inflation, YouTube charges those people more money to run those ads. So my commission, my money I make from YouTube also goes up being self-employed. If you were a wage earner, kind of the floor of the wage earners are the minimum wage. Minimum wage has not gone up since I believe 2009. I think it's like $7.75 right now, somewhere around that for minimum wage. Hasn't gone up since 2009. All other wages are based off of this floor. So maybe you make 2 times minimum wage, 3 times, 4, 5 times minimum wage, but that is the absolute floor. And with inflation, that number becomes less and less relevant, right? $7, let's say it's $8 minimum wage. That's not going to buy you nearly as much right now as it did in 2009. So you need to understand that everybody, all wage earners, just got at least a 6.2% pay cut in the last 12 months. You know, on top of whatever pay cut they got last year and the year before that and a year before that. So another thing you can do to protect yourself is, you know, you could be commission based, get a job or get a side hustle where your pay increases with inflation. And you need to have these awkward conversations with your boss. You need to tell them, I need a pay increase relative, at least at a minimum, to keep up with inflation. But really, you want to go even higher than that. And that's really going to be the best thing. I'm not a fan of gold and silver because they're so illiquid. A lot of times you have to pay a broker just to buy them versus stocks. You don't have to pay, most places you don't have to pay a broker fee anymore to invest in stocks. With like Webull and with Robinhood and other apps like that, you can invest without having to pay any broker fee to buy or sell stocks. But I'm pretty sure gold and silver you still do. And just kind of be cautious and cognizant of this, that you want to get your money in some kind of appreciating asset. And so another element to all of this, why I don't like inflation, but why the wealthy people do like inflation. Wealthy people love inflation because wealthy people know how to play this game. I don't know how to fight against this, but I know how to play the game. And the game is simple. Simply convert your money to appreciating assets as soon as possible. Now, let's say you had a $1 million home and it increased 20%, which it did in the last 12 months. You just made $200,000 just by owning that asset. Let's say you have, but the average person, let's say you're doing pretty well off, you have a $500,000 home. Well, you just made $100,000 with 20% appreciation. But you see the problem here, that the wealthy people just made $200,000. The middle class just made $100,000. That gap between the wealthy and the middle class and lower class is going to get larger and larger and larger because they have assets that are going to appreciate more and more and more. They're simply going to make more money because they have more expensive assets that are appreciating. And this is how these corporations and wealthy people play the game, is that they have assets that appreciate with inflation. Now, if I put on my tinfoil hat here, you know, there's a lot of speculation that they actually encourage inflation. They pay for lobbyists, they pay off, you know, they donate to politicians that are pro-inflation. You know, that's a whole nother thing. The only real way to battle this, though, is to play that game as well and get your money out of cash as soon as possible. So let's answer a few of this, go over a few of these questions. I really want to hear your guys' feedback on all of this as well. And if you guys want to chime in, give your thoughts. If you don't agree with me, by all means, leave your comments down below. So it says you've made a video in the past saying gold and silver are bad ideas. Did you know silver was the best performing asset in 2020? So cryptocurrencies were actually the best performing asset in 2020. And you know, I'm not a trader. I'm an investor. I invest for 5 years, 10 years, 20-year terms, right? I'm not going to be moving my money in and out. You know, and silver may have had a spike, and maybe for a few months or 12 months, maybe it was doing very, very well and outperforming the S&P 500. But on a long time frame, it is much kind of all over the place. And to me, it doesn't appear like it's really keeping up with inflation. And just for you to buy that silver, you have to pay a broker fee. And for you to sell that silver in large quantities, unless you can find an individual willing to pay you market price for it, you usually have to sell it to a broker or sell it to a middleman who's not going to give you market price for it. So I'm not a big fan of investing in silver. That's just kind of my opinion on that. All right, let's see what else we got here. Hope that everyone is doing well today. Guardian Prepping, man, thanks for joining us. I'm doing pretty good. I have appreciating assets, which is why I'm doing pretty good. I'll be honest, man, it does get a little scary because as soon as I do get a paycheck, within a day or two, I'm investing that into something. And it's frustrating because things on the short-term time frame, they do fluctuate. The stock market is down right now, but overall it's up in the last 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, whatever time frame you want to look at. So here's the lowdown. The supply shortage was a planned event to get the inflation the Fed needed to raise interest rates. They knew all along, risking people's lives. So, yeah, I mean, I try not to get too conspiratorial here, but I will say that corporations and wealthy people like inflation. They understand inflation. Jerome Powell is the most wealthiest chairman of the Federal Reserve we've ever had. His net worth is in excess of $50 million. He is benefiting greatly from this 6% inflation. So I don't necessarily want to say anything was planned, but there are these influences on a lot of these people. And another aspect of this is that corporations like inflation as well. So with inflation, your debt effectively gets reduced also. So I own this house here. I took as much leverage as I could, put as little down as I can, because let's say you have a $500,000 loan with 6% inflation, that $500,000 effectively got reduced by 6%. And an easier way to look at this is if you go back to the 1990s and you bought a home for $100,000, and let's say it was an interest-only loan, so you don't put anything towards the anything towards the actual principal of it. Well, 30 years later, you still owe that $100,000, but now the home is worth $500,000 because of inflation. Debt gets reduced with inflation as well. And, we have an all-time high of, we've never had this much debt, federal debt. So what's one way that we can take care of this federal debt and make it less relevant? We increase inflation, and that debt effectively gets reduced. Think about that. And this is a game that corporations play. Corporations will take out a $100 million loan on a 45-year timeline, right? That they pay it back over the next 45 years at a very low interest rate. That's not uncommon to see that with these big corporations. So if you just took out a $100 million loan, you want inflation because, and let's say you took out the $100 million loan, you invested it in assets like a new headquarters or real estate or something, or even just the stock market. You want inflation because your debt gets reduced while these assets appreciate in value. So there's a lot of pressure from corporations and from the wealthy people in our country to continue with our inflation monetary policies because it benefits them and it really hurts the working class. In addition to the inflation across the world, the average worker morale is very low. Yeah, I mean, we are all worse off right now. We are. I mean, let's say you got a 2% raise every year for the past 3 years and you're feeling great about yourself. Oh, no, 6% inflation. You're back to where you were 3 years ago. And even if you got a 2% raise, but inflation has been around 2%. So you effectively have been where you're at, this same level this whole time. But now with 6% inflation, you're back to where you were making, 5-6 years ago. Yeah, it sucks, man. I hate inflation. Another reason why I like cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are a deflationary currency, not an inflationary currency. It's a whole nother topic, though. I made a video about Bitcoin on this channel a while ago, and man, people crucified me. They did not like hearing about that. That's a couple years ago. I hope some of you listened to me and bought Bitcoin back then when it was maybe $4,000, $5,000 a coin. When I look at the government CPI site, they say October is 5.9, November is 6.9 inflation. Oh, interesting. I've heard 6.2, and that's the number that I just saw here. It's going up. Whatever it is. There's a couple, there's like CPI, then there's like CPI-E, CPI-H. There's a couple of like variations of it where maybe it's like only in cities or only in single family residents or like single peoples or family households, a couple of variations of CPI. If you need a huge size solar power station by Blue Yeti, the Maxon website has Okay, great. Hello, my friend. Hello. Just another step of the pandemic unfolding as I don't want to go down that road. The entire staff at my clinic includes both my doctor, all fully jabbed, all got okay. Nope, not going down that road either. Yep, these seem more and more dystopian over time. Yeah. I agree with you. They want okay. It's political. It's the establishment elites on both sides. So it is on both sides, yes. Hey, we need a clean house. Yeah, maybe. We need some fresh blood in the Congress and the Senate and the White House. Here in South Africa, our economy took such a deep hit from the start of last year. We're catching up to Venezuela. Wow. Yeah, so it's interesting because we're not the only country that is printing money like crazy. We've kind of led in that sense, but a lot of other smaller countries are kind of emulating us, and a lot of them are going to get carried away. We're going to see global inflation. I don't say hyperinflation because I think hyperinflation, there's like a specific dollar amount you have to reach, and it's something, or a specific inflation rate is something like 50%. It's something outrageous like that to be technically hyperinflation. But we're effectively going to be seeing that. Again, why it's a good time to own cryptocurrencies. Makes sense regarding precious metals. Didn't think of it that way. Something to look at. Thank you. Yeah, I know precious metals is really big in this community. People always talk about, oh, I'm buying gold, I'm buying silver. I never understood it. Like seriously, you go back to the winter blackout of last year in Texas. 3 weeks. Some people were 3 weeks without power in the middle of the polar vortex coming down there. I think over 200 people froze to death and died in their own homes and cars. If you had gold bullions, or silver coins, are they going to do any good in that situation? Like, no, nobody cares about that in that type of situation. Yeah, I'm not a fan of gold and silver. I will say though, if you wanted to buy stuff like ammunition, or like guns or anything like that, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Those are assets that would appreciate in value with inflation as well. There are some commodities like that do appreciate. Land is definitely going to appreciate with inflation. Well, it's the most effective way to put fear into people, take away their food sources. Bill Gates will be happy to take care of us. He owns more U.S. farmlands than anyone. Not a coincidence. Oh, that's interesting. So, that's the thing. With inflation, the wealthy are getting wealthier. Like, that's just a fact. It's indisputable. And the poor are getting poorer. They're getting paid less. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have great financial education. They don't know how to play this game, and they save money. They, like my 90-year-old grandmother, God bless her, but she didn't want to invest that money, because she saved up her entire life, my grandparents, so that she has that money when my grandfather passes away, and she needs that money to live off of. Like, I totally understand her not wanting to like gamble with that money, but times have changed, and people are screwing over my 90-year-old grandmother with inflation so that they can make more money. I've been buying pounds of heirloom vegetable seeds and bought an electric tiller. I can power from solar if I have to. Very cool, man. I'm in a very rural area. I'm turning my entire yard into vegetables. I love it, dude. Homesteading like that is something that I really want to pursue very soon. I've been in this house maybe about a year, and I got a couple projects. I got to get my compost ready. I got to get a garden going. I got to get want to get some rain barrels in all my gutters as well. Do a little bit more homesteading like that. Hopefully I'll be doing a little bit more videos about that as I work on these projects. I dumped a 401k last week. I paid off my credit cards, my truck, an older IRS loan. I purchased an enormous amount of preps, the last of which is good solar, Jenny. Very cool, man. Dumping your 401k, I don't know. But those are all pretty cool purchases, I think. And most likely all of those are going to cost you more to buy those things next year than it would to buy them right now. That could be another strategy. If you guys have plans to buy assets, they're most likely going to be more expensive next year. I'm serious about this. Most companies have not raised their prices with inflation yet. Most companies have not paid their employees more money to compensate for inflation yet. They've been looking at the Federal Reserve. Just in the last week, the Federal Reserve acknowledged inflation is here to stay, is going to get worse. So now we're going to see companies raising their prices of assets, paying their employees more, which is going to cause them to have to raise their assets even more to purchase things. So it really is a snowball effect. I think it's similar to backing up a car or truck with a trailer on it, right? We've all done that. You're backing it up. You can turn it. It can go just a little bit like this. But once you get to a point of no return, then the thing jackknifes, right? We've passed that point. We have inflation. Now that we all acknowledge inflation, we're all talking about inflation, everybody is going to be raising their prices to compensate for that, and hopefully raising how much they pay their employees, which is going to cause them to have to raise their prices even more to compensate for that. Drones can help with shipping and food sources, and we all know it. They just don't want to. Drones. Oh, that's interesting. We'll get there eventually with the drone technology, especially for like that last mile is what they refer to it as. What Amazon is trying to do right now. What they're really, the big trouble right now is shipping goods from Asia over to America. They're hitting a real bottleneck at a lot of these ports, which is interesting. I think there's a huge opportunity right now for us to start making stuff in America again, so we don't have all these supply chain issues. My mouth's going dry from talking. AM Ryan on the Max site. You can, okay, we're good. Bill Gates' assets have been seized by the U.S. Treasury. He owns, I don't believe that. 100%, there's enough food to feed everyone on the planet. The only problem is transporting food. So I've heard that as well. There really is more than enough food to feed every single human being on this planet. One big thing is that in the U.S., we waste a lot of food. Like if anybody's ever worked at a restaurant or even McDonald's, just the amount of food that goes in the dumpster every single day. In our culture, we love buffets. Buffets are the biggest waste of food. You make all this delicious food, people may or may not eat it, and you throw it all away at the end. So there's a cultural aspect to us wasting food, but also kind of a transportation aspect to it, right? Here in America, we produce a lot of grains. For us to get those grains and process them and then get them to like Africa or something like that, there is a lot of logistical issues kind of going along with that. Gold and silver are not great hedges against inflation, not as good as real estate. Thank you, man. That's exactly what I'm saying. And if you guys have a different opinion on that, I love to hear it. But just by looking at those charts, they have not kept up with inflation. And when I look at investment opportunities myself, I always use the S&P 500 as my benchmark. That is kind of my benchmark. Typically, S&P 500 raises about 9% a year when you factor in dividends that you pay. And if I don't think an asset is going to outperform the S&P 500, then I don't invest in it. That is 9% is what I expect. You look at the larger time frames, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, gold and silver hasn't outperformed the S&P 500 from what I say. So that's how I look at investments. He was advising against precious metals earlier and agreed with that. Gold and silver are market controlled as the central banks, JP Morgan Chase, hold so much. And that's another interesting aspect to it, I think a lot of precious metals, there are a lot of fingers on the scales, especially diamonds. We all know the diamond market is heavily manipulated. We all know that. Yet as consumers, we still spend thousands of dollars on a little itty bitty diamond. It wouldn't be very hard for people to influence the gold and silver market as well. I just don't like that you have to pay a broker fee to buy or sell it. You have to pay a premium to buy or sell it. NFTs. Oh man, non-fungible tokens. Again, the cryptocurrency here. NFTs are the future. I'm telling you guys, cryptocurrencies are here to stay. This technology is going to be adopted in all sectors. Eventually, companies are not going to be listed on the S&P 500, not going to be listed on the NASDAQ. They're going to be tokenized and listed as a cryptocurrency. Real estate transactions are going to be documented using a blockchain like cryptocurrencies. NFTs, non-fungible tokens, are unique tokens that give you essentially ownership to some sort of digital asset. I personally don't really invest in too many NFTs. I really none, except for I did buy some land in Decentraland. I spent $10,000 on a plot of land inside a virtual space because I believe in that asset class so much. There's a couple other games where I own characters in those games that are NFTs and can appreciate in value, and I can resell them down the road. Market almost always goes down in Q4. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know about that. I never noticed that trend. I mean, a lot of times, if somebody knows something's going to happen, it's priced into the market already. I've never seen that trend, but I'm not gonna. It's possible. I have gold and silver, but between my rental houses, my other investments, it's only like 2% of my savings. Good. I'm sure your rental properties have gone way up, and they are producing passive income for you. If you haven't, going back to inflation again, my tenant's lease just renewed. I get $1,900 a month for my rental property. I looked at it. I could probably get like $2,200 a month for my rental property, but I'm not a jerk, and I didn't increase my rent. I kept it at $1,900. It's more than enough for me to be profitable and pay for my mortgage. Next year, though, when my rental lease ends, I'm probably going to increase my rent a little bit. So rentals, again, are kind of a lagging indicator for inflation because the lease has to end before they increase the rental price. So rentals are going to go way up as well. I see that in the future. In 1990, my interest on an FHA home was, isn't that crazy? And now it's the cheapest money we've ever seen. I mean, I've seen people with 2.5%, 2.75% interest on their home loan. It's crazy how cheap the money is right now. And if you go back to the debate of should you pay off your mortgage or take that money and invest it into something else? For years now, I've been telling people, you should probably invest it, because let's say you had like a 5% interest rate. If you pay off your mortgage, you're paying off your mortgage to prevent paying 5% on that money. So let's say you had $300,000 to pay off your mortgage. Now you don't have to pay the 5% on your money. But if you were to take that $300,000 and invest it in the stock market and got a 9% return, which is what the average is for the S&P 500, you would have made a net profit of 3%, 4% on that $300,000. It would have been smarter to invest in it. Now that interest rates are so freaking low, 2.5%, 2.75%, 3% interest, this argument of should you pay off your mortgage to avoid paying 2.5% on that money or invest that money in the stock market so you can get 9%, or the last 12 months, we've seen 20% returns on that money that you would have invested. It's a clear no-brainer that you should take out as much of a loan as you can get and invest as much money as you can into appreciating assets like cryptocurrencies and the stock market. Bitcoin has appreciated about 170% a year over the last 10 years. There's no asset that has outperformed Bitcoin on that scale. No asset class. I mean, I guess there's like individual coins that have, but no major really liquid asset. Invested in multiple sources of solar power, 12-volt cookers, water filters, radio receiving, fishing gear, and seeds. Okay, cool, man. I love it. I mean, the only challenge with that is I'd say a lot of that stuff is not necessarily, it's not liquid. It's hard for you to resell those products if you really need to in a pinch. I guess in a completely apocalyptic scenario, maybe you definitely could. You'd be pretty squared off. And this is a big, argument as well. How much of your money do you invest in assets like that are beneficial during a worst case scenario, and how much do you invest in more liquid assets that are strictly investments? And you really need to have both of those. And I still kind of lean towards you really need, I lean towards gambling that our society is not going to crumble. And I put a lot more of my resources in investable assets that are liquid, like the stock market, cryptocurrencies, real estate, and a smaller portion of my portfolio into solar generators and prepping gear. And so I would caution yourself, don't go too far in this, like gambling that our entire society is going to collapse. I do believe that most emergencies are short term, right? That they are hurricanes and tornadoes and blizzards and things like that, that you just have to be prepared to outlast them for a few weeks or months. And the scenarios of total apocalypse and societal collapse are far, far less likely. So I do invest most of my money into gambling that our society is going to remain solvent and like continue going. Hey, buddy. Hey, Brandon. How are you? John, 3 weeks. How about 2 years? Metals are for the entry of hyperinflation and preserving wealth on the other side of the collapse. Okay. So many roads you don't want to go down. Totally understand. It's hard for me to keep my mouth shut concerning the corrupted 1%. Yeah, I mean, I try not to get political on this channel, right? I think that both the left and right, they both deserve to live. I want to help both left and right people on that spectrum and anybody else on the political spectrum to be prepared for emergencies. Here's the truth. I'm going to get political here for a second, okay? I had a realization in the last couple of years, and that realization is that if you look at the actual policies of somebody like John McCain and then somebody like Joe Biden, right? And so John McCain, Mitt Romney, John Kasich, these are all like centrist or moderate conservatives. And you look at their policies of Joe Biden, they're almost exactly alike. Like 95% of them are exactly alike, right? John McCain is closer to Joe Biden than he is to Donald Trump. And Joe Biden is closer to John McCain and Mitt Romney and John Kasich than he is to Bernie Sanders or AOC. The vast majority of Americans are right here in the center, but we are being divided. And this is a purposeful agenda. We are told that Mitt Romney and John McCain, they are all the way at the end that they're extremists just like Trump. And we're told that Joe Biden is an extremist like Mitt Romney, or sorry, like AOC and Bernie Sanders, but they're not. It's all nonsense. So who benefits from that narrative? The politicians benefit from this two-party system because any one politician has essentially a 50-50 chance of winning that office. If we had 5 different political groups, right, political parties, now any one politician only has a 1 in 5 chance of winning rather than a 50-50% chance. And fear-mongering works. That is why we have this nonsense narrative that everybody is extreme on the left and right, when the vast majority of Americans are right here in this center, and we agree on 95% of policies. Also, who benefits from this narrative that everybody is extreme one way or the other is going to be the media. Fox News, they love fear-mongering, all the terrible things that Democrats are doing. You know, because CNN loves fear-mongering all the terrible things that Trump and a lot of Republicans are doing as well. And it's all nonsense. It's all just a false narrative. The vast majority of people are right here in the center. And so I try not to get too political because this majority is who I'm trying to appeal to. And sometimes I get people on one end or the other end of the spectrum, and they kind of buy into this narrative that the country is divided. And I don't, it's not even an interesting political conversation. When you talk to one of these people that believes this narrative that everybody's left or right, it's not even a fun conversation because you can't talk to them about anything. So that's my view on it, right? I just try to see everybody as American, and I know there's a lot of hot button topics, and I just try to avoid it. But anyway, and I think that there is absolutely corruption, and there is absolutely powerful people influencing politicians to encourage inflation. And like there are plenty of economists that advocate for inflation, having an inflationary currency. There's plenty of economists that advocate against it as well. But, if you're a politician and you have a donor giving you $100,000 and he's saying, hey, look, here's all this great research by 5 different mathematicians and economists showing that inflation is a great thing. We really want you to support inflation. Here's all the data showing how great it is. They're just more likely to accept that data because there's not as many people bribing them or making campaign donations and telling them, hey, look, here's 5 other economists saying that we need deflation, not inflation. So it's not exactly corruption. There's just a lot of influence like that. And this is where it gets really tricky with anything scientific. That so one, science for hire is a very real thing. You absolutely we can see that right now with global warming. You can absolutely pay a scientist to write a research report showing that there is no connection between humans and global warming. There's plenty of research reports on that. And it's very frustrating because scientists can look at the exact same data and make 2 completely different conclusions, and anybody can use any of those papers to justify their arguments. Anyway, I don't want to go down that road. Stop dragging me down this road, as much as I like it. If on prescriptions, try to stock up. Yeah. I mean, healthcare costs is a whole nother scam and a whole nother corruption, a lot of corruption there with healthcare costs. But it'll be interesting to see if that goes up with inflation as well. With 6% inflation, does this mean that all of our health insurances are going to increase by 6% eventually? Probably. Is all of our medical costs, and our hospital bills going to increase? Is all of our medication going to increase in price? Yeah, it probably will. Hello. Hey, Yaya. Nice for you to join us. Yep, that and start looking at alternatives where possible. Hello, Guardian. I work for USPS. You should see my load. Charles Wagner, if you're there, I have something you'll want to watch. Are you still on? Bill Gates is the U.S. Treasury. Gold and silver might just be more valuable. The stock market is the worst place to put your money at the moment. Yeah, that's debatable. Hey, I got a super chat. I got 70 Czar. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, if you wanted to support the channel, you can do that with super chats and super stickers as well. That kind of lets me know that you guys enjoy this type of live streams and this type of content. So yeah, Guardian prepping, I really appreciate it. Helping where I can, enjoying the stream. So Czar, that must be, I think you said you're in South Africa. So let me give him a little bit of a shout out here. Let's see. Let me see if I can do something here real quick. Share screen, share tab. All right, so let's go here. Let's go and check out Guardian Prepping. I kind of want to check out his channel real quick and show my appreciation for the super chat. I probably misspelled that, didn't I? 1,104 subscribers. Yeah, he was on one of my live streams in the past as well. So he's down in South Africa, which is pretty interesting, man. So if you guys want to go and check out his content, Strange Sounds from the Woods compilation, Guardian Prepping, and Bajoran. Oh, you got some live streams. All right, let's take a look here. So you're using a StreamYard as well. That's what I use. So I'm guessing that's Citizen Guardian right there. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the live stream. Maybe we can do a collaboration or something one of these days. Hello from Greece. Hey, nice. Hey there, welcome. Could you please do a video about cryptocurrencies for beginners? Yeah, should I do that? You guys let me know if I should do a video about cryptocurrencies for beginners. I do think it is. All right, so here's the really fascinating thing. Let's put on my conspiratorial hats again. So right now, there's a corrupt, let's talk about corruption in the US real quick. So part of our corrupt system is that there's a lot of investments that we are not allowed to invest our money in unless we are an accredited investor. And there are certain rules for you to be an accredited investor. I think it just means that you have to have at least over $1 million of liquid assets for you to invest in some of these things. And so let's say you want to invest in a company pre-IPO. Many of those you are not allowed to unless you're an accredited investor. And so what this means, what we see a lot is that these people buy into companies like Facebook or Coinbase or something before they ever go public, before you and I ever have an opportunity to invest in them. The wealthy have an opportunity to invest in them, and they'll see like 50x, 20x, 30x returns on their investment. And the day the company goes public, this is why you see stocks suddenly crash, because there's people that invested years ago before it ever went public that have 20x, 30x returns. And as soon as it goes public, they instantly start selling all of their stocks that they have. That's why you see a lot of IPOs instantly start crashing. So the wealthy class, because of their accredited investors, they have access to investment opportunities and assets that we do not have access to. This is part of the corruption. This whole nonsense thing of accredited investors needs to be abolished. It needs to get the fuck out of here, man. It drives me crazy that they can invest in things that we can't. Until now, cryptocurrencies 100% are the future of our global economic system. 100%. I'm dead confident on that. But many of these hedge fund managers, they can't invest in them right now despite wanting to. Kevin O'Leary talks about this a lot. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tanks, he wants to invest money into these things with his companies. Because of the current regulation, that there isn't really, he's just not allowed to. And that's what he says. Go watch Kevin O'Leary talking about this. And many of these accredited investors, they can't invest in these asset classes with their hedge funds or with their companies, but we can. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity that we get to front run the wealthy. We can invest in these asset classes and they can't. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm telling you, I'm dead serious about this. And why I'm investing heavily in cryptocurrencies. They absolutely are the future of the industry. Now, recently we saw that the SEC approved a Bitcoin's future ETF, exchange traded fund. This means that you can invest in that in your 401k, but it's a futures ETF, which is a little bit different than a spot ETF, very different. You're essentially gambling on that the price is going to be higher, but you're not actually owning any Bitcoin. And it's really a weird thing. What we really want is a Bitcoin spot ETF, which we've had numerous people apply to. They haven't approved any of them yet, but they're going to. But once you do that, then it's going to be a basket of them actually buying Bitcoin, and you can invest into that basket and get better exposure to that asset. And that is coming. And that's going to allow a lot of these hedge fund managers to start investing. But as of right now, hedge fund managers and these huge corporations is very complicated and a lot of red tape for them to invest in cryptocurrencies. But we can. So we get an opportunity to front run a lot of these people, which is an amazing once in a lifetime opportunity. Could you please do a video? Yep. Maybe I will. Maybe I should. I did one once before and I got all kinds of hate on it, but I think the sentiment around cryptocurrencies is changed now. It was a couple years ago. You know what? Let me just take a look here. Just to say I told you so. Let's see how long ago it was that I made this video about Bitcoin. And I hope you guys listen to me. Where's my, didn't I make one? I thought I made one. Where's my Bitcoin video? I take it down? I may have even taken it down. I got so much hate on that video. I was kind of embarrassed and it didn't really do all that well. Let me take a look here at the back end of my channel. Search across your Bitcoin. So, okay, I can't find it. Somewhere I've got a video about Bitcoin. Maybe I just mentioned it in one of my other videos. I think I made another financial video a couple years ago. That's what it was. I made one about how to prepare for a financial collapse. Hold on. Sorry, I got to find this now. I'll get back to answering these questions. It was a couple years ago. I think I made one about how to prepare for a financial collapse. And I talk 5 prepping lies. That's not it. This one talks about gold, though, and how much I hate gold. financial collapse. I think it prepare for economic collapse. I think it was in this video here from 2019. I was talking about Bitcoin, and yeah, this is the one, man. And I got so much hate. Wouldn't a major power outage bring about half of slowdown to the usability of Bitcoin? Wait, so if you have a power outage for 6 months, what good is Bitcoin going to do? But I hope you guys listen to me. This was in 2019. Bitcoin was probably $7,000, $8,000 a coin at that time. And I was trying to bring it to everybody's attention here. But anyway, all right, Shiba Inu all the way. No, I hate Shiba Inu. Shiba Inu is essentially a hype coin or a meme coin. It is not going to change the world as we know it, like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, like a Cardano, Solana, any of these other cryptocurrencies. Shiba Inu is just trying to hype up their name. I'm not a fan of that. If your news channel is giving you their opinion, then it is not news. Very true. You know, this is the problem with somebody like Tucker Carlson on Fox News. Tucker Carlson appears to be a news channel, right? He reports on the news, but he's not a news channel. He's a commentary show. And you ask him that, and he's like, oh, no, I don't report the news. I'm a commentary show. And just by that subtle distinction, it gives him reign to not have to report facts. He can make wild speculation, talk about whatever he wants, and not be tied down by having to give facts. And this is a big controversy on Fox News that Tucker Carlson, most people would say, yeah, he reports the news. And he would say, no, technically I give my opinion and I opine about the news. I don't give the news. And that little distinction allows him to not have to fact check a lot of the stuff. So yeah, Eminem, you're absolutely right. Thanks for talking politics for a minute. I've been saying those same things for years. Thank you for financial advice. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Yeah, thanks so much for letting me know you guys enjoy that kind of content. I know, financial advice on a prepping channel is not really, doesn't really seem to blend that well, but I think it is important. I think that we do have to prepare our families for this type of stuff as well. And I think that does tie into prepping. And God, man, I tried starting a political channel at some point, but it got kind of depressing talking about it, honestly. And I don't know if I should get into politics too deep on this one. I mean, maybe the theory about how you're being manipulated by both sides, maybe I could make a video about that. In my emergency strategy, I meet the people in my apartment so that we have some kind of knowledge of each other before a natural disaster or grid down issue. I love that idea. I absolutely do. In my last community, we used to have an annual block party where we would go around to everybody. We had a small community, maybe 20 houses, go around knocking on everybody's doors. Hey, let's come on down to so-and-so's house, have a barbecue, just kind of do a meet and greet. And that was fantastic, just to get to know your neighbors on a personal basis. I think that is a fantastic idea. If you guys live in a small community, consider having a block party, right? Just once a year, maybe in the springtime, maybe Memorial Day, 4th of July, have everybody come down to one person's house or just their front yard. Just do a meet and greet, have a barbecue so you at least know everybody's names. Maybe even have like a ledger there of everybody's contact information if you wanted to start an email chain or something like that. I have a small street I live on right now. We have 4 other houses on this street, or 4 including me, and we all have just kind of a text thread going on just to kind of communicate with each other. I think meeting your neighbors is a fantastic step to be prepared for emergency situations. I think everybody should do that. If you're in an apartment, go knock on everybody's doors, throw a party at your house for everybody on that floor just to get to know everybody. United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Developmental Plans. All that is in me. Look it up. Okay, I'll check that out. Right, all I see within politics is internal and cross-wing nitpicking and slander. Yeah, it's all just mudslinging. It's all nonsense, man. It's just theatrics. I like Andrew Yang, and he said once that politics is a lot like professional wrestling. I was like, wow, yeah, man, that's pretty deep. It is a lot like professional wrestling. Check out his channel. Yes, I did it. Truly appreciate it. No problem, man. Appreciate you joining the live streams. I'm going to try to do these live streams more often. I want to set a goal of doing it once a week, doing a live stream like this, maybe reporting on current news and events, and then kind of getting everybody else's feedback on this stuff. So the truth is, like, I mean, I love hearing from the community. I think you guys know a lot of stuff that maybe I don't even know. I love hearing your opinions on a lot of these things. Frankly, I started buying silver because it's part of preparedness, not the entirety. So down or not, it balances out. I think people are too focused on short term and need to let things mature. Yeah, look, I agree with that, man. If you want to do a small portion of your portfolio into, assets like that, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that when you're looking at preparedness, it should be proportional to the percentage chance of a disaster occurring. Okay, so what the most common disaster occurrence is actually house fires, right? House fires happen all the time. Thousands of people in America die every year from house fires. One thing that really bothers me is when I see somebody, they go out and they're like, yeah, I'm buying a handgun. I spent $700 on this gun. It's because I want to protect my family in case there's ever an intruder. I'm like, great, man. So I'm guessing you have everything else covered, right? So you already have fire extinguishers on every floor and smoke alarms in every bedroom? Like, no, I don't. Like you need to you should be prepping according to chances of it actually occurring. And I say house fires is really where you need to start, and then power outages, and then kind of whatever it is, your geographical area. Whether it's going to be blizzards or hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes. And, a complete grid down apocalypse scenario, like it could happen. And, those are the scenarios where gold and silver could become a new form of currency. It could happen. And so, it's just kind of down on the priority list for me of what you should be investing in at first, or for your preparedness. That's kind of how I look at it. So it's entirely possible that there could be a scenario where silver and gold turns into a new form of currency. It's just, it's a 1% chance. So if you want to put 1% of your portfolio in it, that's perfectly fine, in my opinion. Everything is messed up, and my personal opinion is that things will not get better. I also think this is the end times. I am not usually a negative person. So, hold on. So I know we have a lot of negative news in the world right now, and we are being very polarized, right? We're being separated on purpose. That is their agenda, to separate us and kind of bid us against each other so that individuals can rise to power in that time. Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones, he once said that chaos is a ladder, right? That during chaos, that's when people can rise to power. And can take power. And I think that is part of the political agenda, is to separate us, create turmoil, and some people are going to gain power during these situations. But if you zoom out, you look on a macro scale, right? Childhood mortality is at an all-time low. Financial women going to school, across the world, that is an all-time high. Global major countries battling in war is at an all-time low, right? All these big macro things on a global scale are looking the best they ever had in the entire history of the world, right? Murder rates globally is down. Rape is down globally. Like all these metrics like this. So on a macro scale, globally, we're doing very well. It just doesn't seem like it in our day-to-day lives because of the media. We focus on the negative for whatever reason. So I get that things feel a little messed up. And this right now may be a pretty unique time because of the virus and everything. But globally, on a macro scale, things are looking better. Politicians are the Freemasons, and I drop the mic and walk away. Shiba Gang. No, I'm not a member. I own a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm not a member. Yes, please. I don't understand crypto. Okay, maybe I can make a video like crypto versus gold or something like that. Just subscribe to your channel, Guardian Prepping. Hey, there we go, man. I got you a subscriber already. There is some thought that you need to be an accredited investor. There are some though that, yeah. So even with cryptocurrencies, there's some projects called IPOs, initial public offerings. So before it goes public, if you live in any other country besides America, you can invest in these projects before they release their coins. And oh man, I want to get in these so much. We're seeing coins that 50x, 100x, 1000x their investments within 12, 24 months of launching. And with these IPOs, you can invest in it invest the project before they release their coin and go public. And in America, we are the only country that does not allow their residents to invest in these things because they say that they are securities. If you're investing before the coin is published and it has utility, then it is a security. You're not allowed to invest in securities unless you're an accredited investor. But once it's actually published, well, now it's an asset. Once it's actually created this coin, and you can invest in it. And it is beyond frustrating. So if you're down in South Africa, go look up ICOs or initial coin offerings, or IDOs, initial DEX offering, or IGOs, initial game offerings. You can invest in these projects that some of them are doing 100x, 1000x returns. And it's so frustrating that we are the only country that does not allow this because of the corruption, because I'm not an accredited investor. I can't invest in these things. You're getting me started here. It's very frustrating. Good, you don't need to stay away from crypto. Okay, well, maybe I'll start exploring that a little bit more now. I'm tempted to start a whole cryptocurrency channel, I'm not gonna lie. Cheers, folks. What happened to crypto if there's an EMP attack that takes out the power grid? Yeah, so EMP, a great question. And I'll tell you exactly what's gonna happen. Cryptocurrencies are global, right? Bitcoin is on a globally decentralized ledger. So who owns what is stored on millions of computers all around the world, creating the most secure network in the world. You could have several EMPs hit America, wipe out every single computer in America, but that ledger is still going to show that you own those assets. And if you just have to go to another country and log on to a computer and all your assets are still there, or you can actually own cryptocurrencies on like a little thumb drive. And you can stick that thumb drive in like an EMP bag or, a safe or something, protect it from EMP. And then you just need to plug it into a computer and it's there for you. Bitcoin is the most secure network in the entire world, more than anything else, because it is literally millions of computers and they all have a copy of the same ledger of who owns what on it. So in the short term, you wouldn't be able to access those funds, but in the long term, you could. And here in America, that may not seem like a big deal, but in a lot of other countries, where the country is in turmoil, and let's say you're in China, if you own cryptocurrencies in China, you're not legally allowed to leave the country with your money. But with Bitcoin, I mean, you could have that Bitcoin just on a ledger, a thumb drive, and if you can, or even a small flash drive, and you can smuggle that out. You can smuggle $100 million worth of money in a small flash drive, or you can put it on a network. And there's this long, like 16 word phrase that they generate for wallets. And if you can just memorize these 16 words in a particular order, you can recover that wallet anywhere in the world. So it helps if you're in an authoritarian dictatorship like China or communist country like China. You can easily smuggle your cryptocurrencies out of that country. And we've seen that in a lot of other countries that have civil wars where people lose everything. They lose their life savings. And cryptocurrency is going to help prevent that. Cryptocurrency is also going to provide banking to millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people in a lot of these third world countries that have never had access to banking before. If you just have a cell phone, you now have access to banking with Bitcoin as an international coin. There's a lot of value in cryptocurrencies in nations that are seeing inflation or experiencing civil war as well. The Taliban used to have Afghani money, and then the Taliban came in and they created their own money. Now you have a different form of currency. And then, the US coalition forces came in And now you went back to Afghani money. And now the Taliban are back in control. What kind of money do we have now? It's in 20 years, all these cycles of what is the current money. You could just invest your money in Bitcoin and not have to worry about your local country's turmoils and the civil wars. There's money from Iraq that I think has Saddam Hussein's face printed on it. What if you're just a friendly Iraqi or Afghani, and you're just a local farmer and you want to store your money in an asset that it cannot be taken by your government, or you don't have to worry about your government printing ridiculous amount of money and causing hyperinflation, you losing your life savings. That's where Bitcoin comes in. Silver was the best performing asset of 2020. Yeah, so I think you said that before, and I kind of don't believe it. So I'm sorry, but maybe it was. Let's take a look here. Hold on, that's not the chart I want. Let me share my screen. Let's take a look. Let's see if silver was the best performing asset in 2020. And you may have even seen that on TV somewhere. They may have said that, or somebody else may have said that, but maybe they weren't including cryptocurrencies. All right, so here's silver. Silver prices. So let's look at the 1 year. On a short-term time frame, it may be the best performing asset. Okay, so you're saying 2020 though. So this is 12 months is down. So I mean, from 12 months ago, it's down now, but. And I mean, I guess it kind of depends on how you're measuring it. If you're measuring it from the way bottom down here, but let's say at the beginning of 2020, it was at $17 an ounce, I'm guessing. At the end of 2020, is this the end? No. This is probably the end. So $17 all the way up to $26. So that's almost the 2x. It's almost doubled in value. Now let's look at Bitcoin. So 2020, silver went from $17 all the way up to $27, and now it's pulled back down to about $22. Bitcoin let's look at 5 years. So in 2020, was down here at about $9,000 a coin. By 2021, it was at $32,000 a coin. So Bitcoin more than tripled, where silver doubled. So for 2020, I think Bitcoin has surpassed it. And, Bitcoin's kept some of those. Bitcoin's super volatile right now, obviously, because of the politicians, because of, somebody will tweet something and it'll affect the Bitcoin price. China will ban Bitcoin again, which they've done like 6-7 times, and it'll affect the price. So Bitcoin's pretty volatile. But it's volatile because it's a new technology. And what we're seeing is the cultural adoption of a new technology. And if you could, somehow quantify the adoption of, let's say, the internet, you may see swings like that as well, or quantify now this may not be a best analogy, but we're seeing the cultural adoption of new technology right here. So you can expect a lot of volatility in that. And a lot of countries are absolutely threatened by it. Bitcoin is going to put banks out of business. I am dead serious about that. We saw this recently. So let me tell you the scams that banks run. All right. So you walk into a bank and you see, hey, savings account, you put your money into us, you give us $10,000, we'll give you 0.01% return on that investment. Not even a full percent, 0.01% interest on that. And so you'll see that on the sign. And right above that, they'll say, and we'll give you a credit card and only charge you 23% interest on that credit card. Incredibly low rate. And what you see is that they'll tell you, put $10,000 in the savings account, and then, hey, here's a free credit card, no interest for the first 6 months. So you go and rack up $10,000 worth of credit card debt. You're paying 23% on that credit card, that loan from them. When they give you money, you pay 23%. When you give them that same amount of money, $10,000, they're giving you 0.01%. It is a racket. It is a scam. And they will tell you that, yes, you need to build your credit. Credit cards are a great way to build your credit. Buy now, pay later, and all this stuff. It is a scam. What we're seeing with cryptocurrencies right now, we're seeing with Coinbase, for example, that they are adopting a similar model where you can now borrow money against your cryptocurrencies. You can use your cryptocurrencies as collateral. Coinbase will give you a loan based on that, and you can go and purchase a house with that, purchase a car, whatever you want. And if you wanted to, you can put your money in Coinbase and earn interest on that. And you're earning interest. They're sharing the profits that they make by lending out money with cryptocurrency as collateral. They're sharing that profit with the people who are keeping their coins on Coinbase. And actually, Coinbase may not be the best example. We're seeing this on other platforms. And they are giving their users 4, 5, 6% return on their money just for keeping their money on that platform. So maybe they're charging a 10% interest rate to take out a loan. They are giving us 5% interest rate just for keeping our money on that platform. They're effectively lending out that money to other consumers, which is exactly what banks do, except banks are greedy and they give us 0.01% interest. And so Coinbase recently, so a lot of companies all around the world are doing this. A few in the US. Coinbase is the largest exchange in the US. They tried to do this, and the SEC shut them down. They said, no, we're not allowing this. Even though there's all these other companies in the US that are doing it right now, they're not allowing it because this is going to put banks out of business. You can keep money in a savings account and get a 0% interest rate, or you can keep money in stable coins on an exchange like Coinbase or Gemini and get 5% interest rate a year. Why would anybody have a bank account? And now with Coinbase, you can get a direct deposit. Your check gets a direct deposit into Coinbase. And they have things called stable coins, which is like a coin pegged to the US dollar. And so if you don't want to, you can have your checks directly deposited and converted into Bitcoin or into one of these stable coins. And you can start earning interest on these stable coins as well. And they've also issued a credit card as well. So you can buy whatever you want. And then that credit card, you can pay it off with cryptocurrencies or with cash, whatever you want. So you can live entirely off of Bitcoin right now with Coinbase, and you can get a 175% average return on your investment. And if you want to put money in stable coins, you get a better investment than that. There's like really low fees as well. Like these exchanges are going to put banks out of business. This is why people are threatened by cryptocurrencies. Why there's all this fake news and nonsense out there about cryptocurrencies. They're going to put banks out of business. Bitcoin is. And it's exciting to watch, and I love watching it. But just understand that is why there's a lot of this volatility in the price and why a lot of people are saying all this nonsense about it. It's all nonsense. And no matter how much fear-mongering they do, they can't stop cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins. They're here to stay. I love watching that. I love watching the bankers squirm. Hello from Staten Island, my family. Anna, I thank you for all the info. My family and I thank you for all the info. Yeah, thanks for joining me. Silver in hand will never lose value. Could lose monetary value. I don't know. That what diversification is for, bud. Yeah, I'm all about diversification. I really am. I do own stocks. I own real estate. I own cryptocurrencies. I don't own any precious metals, though. My pleasure. Looks like a good channel. Man, really, you guys got me on some rants today. Diversify to mean is gold, silver, platinum, palladium. To me. That too. Everything inside me channel. PG. Yes, that's everything. Okay. Tucker Carlson is more honest than all the other 5 networks combined. Laugh my ass off. So I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson. I'm not. He absolutely manipulates information for his own personal agenda sometimes. However, Tucker Carlson is very pro cryptocurrencies as well. He recently had a fantastic interview with Michael Saylor. If you guys want to learn more about cryptocurrencies, and let's say I have a lot of people are pretty right-leaning on this channel. Tucker Carlson, Michael Saylor. I want you guys to go and watch this interview. Where's the full interview, though? maybe this one here. This is an amazing interview. I love Tucker Carlson barely even talks. Michael Saylor rants about Bitcoin and how it's changing our society for like 50 minutes straight. This is, go watch this thing. If you guys are on the fence about it, Tucker Carlson's, he's been orange pilled now, which is what we call that. He's seen the light. He's very pro crypto now. It's pretty interesting to watch, but I'm not a fan of him. I think that he does manipulate the data and misconstrue stuff. And sometimes I see him talking. I just want to jump in there. I just want to like go and like be on the network. Like, no, what are you talking about, man? You've got your own personal political agenda. And unfortunately, when it comes to being a media personality, fear-mongering works. It works. And that's one of the things I'm trying my hardest not to do on this channel, is make predictions about the future and fear-monger in order to get views on this channel. I'm really resisting that urge. And it's kind of a fine line. Since then, we have had a major power outage here in Texas, major disasters, an eye-opener. If did an updated video, it would get a more positive response. Oh, regarding Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is actually getting quite popular in Texas as well. And here's a good argument for it. Bitcoin, it encourages renewable energy. It does. The most expensive part of mining Bitcoin, which is essentially these farms that help secure the network, and they have copies of the ledger on them, and they run the network, and they get rewarded in Bitcoin. It's called mining Bitcoin. The most expensive part of that is electricity. And so you see miners going all around the world to literally wherever they can find the cheapest electricity. And renewable energy is some of the cheapest electricity out there. And a big part of electricity is actually the transportation of it. So if you're down in Texas, you need to transport electricity from the Hoover Dam, you can lose 50-60% of the electricity due to heat loss just running along those copper wires down to your area. And so Bitcoin is creating, people are creating like solar farms and wind farms, geothermal farms to create electricity and then mine Bitcoin on the spot there. And the advantage of some place like Texas is that they can be hooked up to the grid. And during those emergency situations, they can divert that energy from mining Bitcoin to the power grid to help support the power grid there. So having these individual farms kind of scattered throughout that are producing renewable energy is a huge advantage to people on the power grid. El Salvador, they set up a geothermal energy producing thing. I forget what it's called, but they're creating energy from volcanoes, and they created this whole station that creates geothermal electricity just to mine Bitcoin on the side of a volcano, which is freaking wild and shows how Bitcoin encourages renewable energy. It encourages the cheapest energy possible, and oftentimes that is renewable energy. And again, like they had to, if they could divert that energy to the power grid to support a city if there's rolling blackouts or anything like that, instead of towards Bitcoin. I like the lighting situation in your room. Yeah, thank you, man. I put quite a bit of thought into that. I got a little background light going on over here. I got these Edison bulbs, this guy over here. I put some thought into it. Hi guys, what's up? Hey Lady T Survival, thanks for joining us. Hi Lady, hi Guardian, hi Butterfly. So, all right. So Butterfly, do you have a YouTube channel as well? Are you pretty active on YouTube? People do research. People, do research yourself. Instead of looking into why crypto is good, why don't you look into why crypto is bad and do a pros and cons video list? Yeah, I mean, so right now, the biggest argument against cryptocurrencies is the source of energy. People will often say stuff like, oh, you're burning coal in order to produce cryptocurrency. It's terrible for the planet. And it is a bit of a misleading narrative. You're kind of manipulating the data there, because that's not a reflection on the source of electricity for Bitcoin. That's a reflection on the source of electricity for our entire power grid, right? They say, well, the entire US power grid, a big portion of it is created by coal. Well, therefore, when you run these mining rigs for Bitcoin, you're using coal energy and is bad for the environment. But it's more a reflection on our entire power grid. And right now, Bitcoin is the leading source of incentive for renewable energy globally. Like I said, El Salvador has created a thermal power plant on the side of a volcano using volcano power. They created this power plant just so that they can mine Bitcoin, and then any excess power is going to go into their power grid. They're doing that right now. And it financially wouldn't have made sense for them to do that without them mining Bitcoin on location. It wouldn't have been financially sustainable. So it is absolutely encouraging renewable energy. It is the largest incentive we're seeing. We've never had an incentive like this for renewable energy ever. Sorry, I'm ranting and raving here. Yes, maybe I should I'll make more cryptocurrency videos. I'll try one. So the concern with that is that on YouTube, let's say I make a Bitcoin video and I'll say it does really well. I get like 1 million views. And then those people subscribe to my channel. But my channel is really for prepping, right? And then what if they don't watch any of my prepping videos at all? Then I have these kind of dead subscribers. So I'd have to come at it from an angle of, how should I be? I'll have to think about that one. But I'm glad you guys appreciate my cryptocurrency chats, man. I could ramble on all day about that. Silver is not a get-rich-quick situation. Instead, silver is a value holder. Yeah, okay, that's a valid point. It doesn't appear to be holding its value against inflation, though. But like some people, if you have a whole portfolio, you have some high risk stuff, some low risk stuff, some no risk stuff, and silver is probably kind of in that more or less no risk category. Silver holds its value in spite of. Okay, well, sorry, I didn't see that comment yet. All right, man. Yeah, to each his own. Go for it. I only have silver jewelry. I guess better than no silver. Another challenge with silver is that it is not a finable asset. They could discover a new silver mine in El Salvador or something and suddenly flood the market with silver. And every single year they are producing more and more silver, just like they're producing more and more US dollars. With Bitcoin, it is capped. There will never, ever be more than 21 million Bitcoins ever produced. And each Bitcoin is divisible up to 8 decimal places. So you can have a 1/100th of a Bitcoin or whatever you want. And just having that finite asset, having a finite amount of that asset, I think is going to help it. Guarantee it's going to appreciate. Same thing with land. There's only so much land that goes around. Lady T Survival says, has no portfolio, is a broke person. Oh, you. But that makes no difference other than the speed of preparedness, using EBT to prep and change diet to preparedness diet already. Yeah, fantastic. That's perfectly fine not having a portfolio. And I'm glad that you're dieting. I think that your physical health plays a big role in being prepared for emergencies. If having poor physical health, can lead to you being on like statins for high cholesterol and all these other medications, which makes you a little bit more vulnerable in disaster situations. And just being physically healthy in general can be very helpful for preparedness. Gold and silver have always been currencies. In fact, they are the only form of currency according to our Constitution. So there's another guy out there that you'd probably love, Peter Schiff. You probably know Peter Schiff already. Go and watch some of his debates, him versus Bitcoin. He says very similar things. He hates Bitcoin. He's never going to invest in it, yada, yada, yada. He loves gold. It's the only thing he ever invests in. He's a gold bug. You'd probably like some of his content as well. People that speak of gold and silver as if they aren't currencies, need a history lesson. Yeah, I don't really care so much about the history. Like, we are in 2021, there are simply better forms of currency. Gold can be a currency in the US. The dollar used to be backed by gold. Gold essentially was the foundation of the US currency. But it's 2021. There are just better assets. And Bitcoin, think about Bitcoin as this way. You get a group of engineers into a room and you say, hey, we need to design a better form of currency. We want this currency to be non-inflationary. In fact, let's make it deflationary. We want it to be able to travel anywhere in the world at, in fractions of a second. We want it to be incredibly cheap. We want it to be able to be stored anywhere, whether it's, on a thumb drive or anywhere. We want it to be incredibly secure. They wanted all these things in a cryptocurrency. We want it to be not controlled by any one country or any one nation or influencer. And they came up with Bitcoin, right? They purposely designed the best form of cryptocurrencies that this group of engineers could possibly think of creating, and that is Bitcoin. So I'm not arguing that gold can be a form of currency. Bitcoin's just a better form of currency. It's a car is a better form of transportation. A horse is a form of transportation. It has been for thousands of years. Great. Yeah, go ride your horse. But a car is a better form of transportation, arguably, right? I prefer cars over horses, and I prefer Bitcoin over gold for currency and just a store of value, just an asset, Eat what you store what you eat. So lots of rice dishes, etc. I think it's a good advice. When I first got into prepping, I started buying just like beans and vegetables and cans and stuff. And then I was like, man, this stuff sucks. I don't even like eating this stuff, now. Why would I buy this when I'm prepping? And I think you're absolutely right that if you're going to be stockpiling extra food, and not necessarily like freeze-dried food, but just extra food, buy what you eat normally and just kind of cycle through that. Because even canned food does go bad after a while. You do need to eat it and cycle through it. Even in third world countries with no running water or electricity can tell you the price of gold. Gold price literally fluctuates daily. Right? I don't even know what the price of gold is right now. Let's see what the price of gold is now. I bet you it's very different than a month ago. How would a third world country know what the price of gold is at any given time? Gold has dropped. Look at that. It's dropped almost $100. I'm guessing an ounce. What is that? Yeah, $100 per ounce in the last month or so. How would somebody in a third world country who doesn't have access to the internet know what the price of gold would be? Gold will always be currency, always. So I don't even know if you call it a currency now. It's an asset, it's an investable asset. How often do you use that as a currency? Can you go to the grocery store and buy something with gold? No. Can you buy anything with gold? When's the last time you bought anything with gold? I don't even know if you can call it a currency right now. What country uses gold as a currency? Let me know right now. What country literally uses gold? Are there any countries that still have gold coins? I kind of doubt it because the price fluctuates so much. Laugh Out Loud, he says, where is my crypto video? I might have took it down because it had so much heat on it. I was kind of embarrassed. It didn't even really do all that good. Here's your sign. Don't buy precious metals until you have your food storage. Yes, I agree with that. Buying precious metals is, again, start with the preps start with preparing for the emergencies that are most likely to occur. And, being isolated to your house for a month straight, plenty of scenarios where that may happen, and it does happen. That's why you want to have your food storage squared away. When the pandemic first started, I didn't leave my house for like a good month. I didn't go to any grocery stores or anything. And I just stayed at home and kind of ate some of my supplies that I had. So I didn't want to, we didn't know how bad things were going to get or how bad the virus was. I didn't want to expose myself to that. So I isolated my home for the first month or so. And I had that luxury because I had enough food stored up. So even like this, even, you know, if there's some new variant or something, you know, you want to be able to just stay shelter in place for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Maybe not because you have to, but because you choose to. I agree there. Food inflation is on the rise. Buy food first. Yeah, food prices are going up. Lady T, I have the rice and beans and oatmeal, but we don't do well on the carbs, but better than starving. You will save money buying it sooner than later. Silver outperformed all stocks in 2020. So, I mean, yeah, you're looking at a very specific time frame, though. Like, I get it. People got scared in 2020 and they started investing in that. I get that, but like, it's gone down now, you know. And it didn't outperform Tesla. Tesla did exceptionally well in 2020. It may have outperformed the S&P 500, which only appreciated by about 30% or so in 2020. And this thing is for suckers. Honey and salt are amazing foods for stockpiles. Buy canned meats, fruits, vegetables. Dehydration of fruits and veggies is a viable store method. Vacuum seal. Okay, great. All right, I'm going to go for another 10 minutes. Let's see if we can get it to 2 hours, and then I'll call it quits. My jaw is tired of talking. All you have to do is go to another country and log on. Oh, you're talking about cryptocurrencies. I wonder, do I have that many comments that there's like that much of a delay here? There may be. That is a great answer for an emergency. Yes, thank you. I have some canned meat and veggies. No need. Also been squirreling away salt, storing away salt, and of course water. I have some filters. It's great. Yeah, you know, I mean, I actually right here, I have personally have a lot of just gallons of water kind of stored in my house like this, and then I also have water filters as well. Water is pretty important. EMP proofing most electronics is useless as most other electronics are going to be dead, i.e., cell phone towers, modems, etc. No internet. Yeah, you're right about that. However, I feel like the cell phone network should probably be the very first thing that they bring back up. And like I do have like a solar generator. I have solar panels and generators and everything. So yeah, I guess EMP. Like yeah, I mean you're right that during a grid down situation, everything would be down, but they would be the first things to come back up as well, and they will come back up eventually, almost certainly. Okay. Everything else is fake. Okay. Have fun investing in gold, man. I'll be over here buying my cryptocurrency in my digital land. Only EMP-proof useful items like vehicles, generators, wind turbines, solar panels. Yeah, I like that idea. Another thing I would do is I do like having scanned copies of important documents and keeping those on a thumb drive and then putting them inside one of these EMP-proof bags and keeping those in my waterproof safe. So I think important documents can be another thing to EMP-proof on the thumb drive. Okay. Food, salt, small livestock, ammo, water filters, seeds, etc. are all viable alternative currencies. So yes, I would say during a really bad situation, that very well could be true. And again, we go back to Texas during those 3-week-long power outage that some people experienced. You know, what is it that you could trade somebody? If somebody had extra batteries, what could you trade them for that they would actually accept? They wouldn't care. They wouldn't give up their extra batteries for gold bullions or, you know, silver coins. But a water filter, ammo, food, salt, would they give up extra batteries for those things? Yeah, they probably would. You know, I think that is a much better investment than gold and silver for emergency situations, in my opinion. Some quail, but I don't think I can swing it because I have cats. Oh, okay. Liquor and alcohol, first aid are all viable currencies. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Liquor, salt, sugar, cocoa powder, vinegar with mother, rice, and beans. Hey, everyone. Hey, former son prepping. Thanks for joining us. Greeting from the free state of Alabama. Hey, man. Thanks for joining us. Kind of at the end here, my jaw's a little tired, but I'm going to try to do these more often, maybe once a week. 2 people in my household. Goal is 2,000 pounds of food storage per year for both of us. I'm at about 600 pounds now and 200 pounds of salt mixed long term. Wow, man, look at you. Like you're measuring stuff in pounds. I don't even do that. Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you. So you could shelter in place for a full year if you had to. Howdy, farmer. I got in trouble with that vinegar with the mother because I thought I had strep throat and I didn't, and I ended up making it worse, and I had to go to the doctor. Oh man. Are you storing iodine salts? Hi, Emily. Both in case. Brad. You can calculate by using the daily calorie intake too. The War Eagle, a farmer's son prepping. Man, we got all kinds of preppers in the house today. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Yeah, like I said, man, I want to do this more often. Maybe start having a few of these other YouTube channels on here as well and kind of talk about some certain issues. Iodized potassium pills for the true fallout situation. True Guardian, I have an average 800 pounds per person per year. 1 ounce of silver would buy the same amount of goods as it would 20 years ago. Does it? All right. I need to get some work done around the house. Procrastinating. All right, let's kind of scroll down a few of these. Man, I got all kinds of comments here. We are the human race. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thanks everybody being so active on here. I really do appreciate it. That kind of tells me that I should be doing more of these. You guys actually enjoy this. Maybe I should be doing a little bit more about cryptocurrencies. And a Vietnam era Air Force vet here from Iowa. Been watching your channel for some time now. Been prepping for about a year now. Thanks for your info. Watched your review of EcoFlow Delta Plus. Ordered. Oh, fantastic, man. Yeah, I am actually a big fan of these. EcoFlow Delta. Like this thing is very, very impressive. It really is very impressive. It's very compact. It feels very high quality, and I honestly mean that. I actually have another company sent me a similar product to this that they made, and it's not as good. It's not as high quality as the EcoFlow Delta. I think that this really is one of the best home battery systems on the market. Like I honestly do believe that. So I'm glad to hear that you actually ordered one. Is crypto a Ponzi scheme? It's not. It's the fastest for transactions like cash, Venmo, Visa. So the Bitcoin network is like the fastest network in the world. Sending Bitcoin itself, though, can take a long time to validate it. So there you have Bitcoin, and then you have the Bitcoin network. And so there's a lot of there's a company called Strike that they have a cash app or Venmo type app like that. And they run on, they're essentially a middleman and custodian. So let's say you want to send me $100 in Bitcoin. That actual transaction of the Bitcoin could take 10, 15 minutes. But what this app does for almost free, for literally pennies, it will take your $100 and then send me $100 themselves, or essentially credit me that $100 to be the middleman during that transaction. And what's cool is that you could send me Bitcoin and have them pay me out in rubles or Japanese currency or any other cryptocurrency or any other currency in the world almost instantaneously in a matter of like 2 seconds. The Bitcoin network itself is the fastest network in the world for sending money. You need these custodial middlemen in there to really make it work, though. And there's a lot of companies that are emerging that are doing that right now. There's also products like what Coinbase offers where you can have a credit card and you simply rack up a debt and then you pay that debt off at the end of the month with your cryptocurrency. So you can buy anything you want with cryptocurrency, just like you can with a credit card or Venmo or any of these other things. Coming government is causing this. Iowa here as well is short for my mainstream media, i.e. the liar in journalism. Thank you for this info. Can't wait to share with my family. Yes, more on cryptocurrencies is welcome. Best from San Francisco Bay Area, California. Yeah, thanks for joining me, Carmen. And okay, you guys have spoken. Maybe I'll do some more cryptocurrencies videos. I could ramble on about that for hours, man. The metals are for after an emergency has passed. So again, give me an example of that. That's the challenge. It's theoretical, and there are some theoretical Walking Dead scenarios where maybe precious metals would be a viable currency. But what, in the last 100 years, when has there been a scenario like that in the U.S. where precious metals has turned into a form of currency again? Maybe the Great Depression, maybe it was a little bit at that time, but you look at some of the worst disasters where there's bad hurricanes and floods and forest fires and winter blackouts. Nobody's really using precious metals as a form of currency. Now there's just these theoretical scenarios that could emerge. That's kind of how I look at it. Equity, but agree totally. He's already formed his opinion on silver. I'm open to changing my opinion, man. I really am. I'm even open to investing in some. Especially like old silver quarters. I've thought about buying bags of those silver quarters just to diversify my portfolio a little bit. It's just I don't really get it. I guess I just don't really get it. Holding physical assets will always beat crypto. What does that mean, beat crypto? It won't beat crypto in the return. It won't beat crypto in the liquidity of it. It won't beat crypto in being able to transport it anywhere around the world instantaneously, almost for free. How does it beat crypto? Like crypto, Bitcoin gets an average of 175% return on your investment a year for the past 10 years. What way does it beat crypto? Now maybe in a power outage situation, you go for a month without any power. In the short term, physical assets would beat crypto. I would just, during those emergency situations, I'd rather have food rations and alcohol and first aid that I can use as a form of currency rather than silver coins. And there's also the Lightning Network based on Bitcoin, which is even faster. That's right. So you have Bitcoin, and then you have the Lightning Network, which is kind of a layer 2 on Bitcoin. And I don't even really understand the Lightning Network. I just know that it makes everything run much faster and a little bit more secure. And they may even come out with other upgrades or forks of Bitcoin, a soft fork, which is kind of an upgrade to the Bitcoin protocol, or other layers that run on top of the Bitcoin network. So you have Bitcoin, the asset, and then you have Bitcoin, the network. And unfortunately, they're called the same thing, but they really should be called something different, because the Bitcoin network is a network of decentralized computers, millions of computers all around the world, and is the most secure network. And you can send other data across this network, not just like Bitcoin. That's the big innovation. How about in the 70s when they confiscated all the gold? Yeah. I mean, that's freaking crazy that they did that. And that Nixon took us off the gold standard, and that they made a requirement you had to give in your gold. I mean, I wasn't born in the 70s. I don't really know all the details about that. But what's your argument there? I think I was saying, what scenario is it helpful to actually have gold? I mean, so even in that scenario, if you try to use gold as a medium of exchange, there may be people like, oh no, the government says I'm not supposed to have that. I don't want that. I would imagine using it as a medium of exchange probably was a lot harder if they're confiscating the gold. They literally stole wealth. They paid out $30 an ounce, and it was worth $300 an ounce. Yeah, don't trust your government. I mean, it's a fine line, man. It is a fine line, because it's not, don't trust your government on everything that they say. You have to kind of be selective and try to figure out what is worth listening to and what's not. Like, I value FEMA, and I value their opinion on how to be prepared for emergencies, right? But there's other members of the government that I don't trust, and Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve, who was appointed under Trump and now just reaffirmed under Biden, surprisingly. So now it's under both, left and right politicians have approved him as the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Like, I don't really trust him, honestly. I don't know if he has my best interest, your best interest, or whether he has the wealthy interests and the corporation's interests in mind. But yeah, everything you hear from the government and any politician and from the news and from YouTube, you have to take with a grain of salt. It's very frustrating, man, figuring out what's real and what's not real in our society today. It's a real challenge. It really is. I don't have a good answer for how to figure out how to evaluate facts and figure out if somebody's full of nonsense or not. And most people, we don't have a 100% hit rate. I don't even have a 100% hit rate on a lot of this stuff. It's try to, whatever. Anyway, we're talking about SHTF. You might not always have your iPhone. Yeah, very true. But I mean, in the long run, a year after SHTF, I mean, it kind of depends on, so SHTF, so you're talking about the total collapse of our society. Well, what if it's not the total collapse of society? What's the total collapse of just the US society? And 10 years from then, you can rebuild it and you get access to the Bitcoin network again, and you can recover all of your funds. If you had, $1 million in the bank in US currency and our currency goes to zero, you lose all of that. Or what if the banks, repossess your property or something? You're talking about how the government, all right, so you're talking about how the government stole all of our gold and made it illegal for us to have gold, and that they made us repossess, they confiscated our gold. They can't confiscate your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin is on a globally decentralized ledger. You can just literally remember your seed phrase, and 10 years from now, you can get that gold back. They can't confiscate it. And here in the US, that may not be a big deal, but in other countries like China, it is a big deal. You're not allowed to leave China with a lot of your assets. And a lot of these other countries, where they're experiencing civil war like Afghanistan, you can't just pull out $1 million out of your bank account or whatever you have, $10,000, $100,000, and leave the country with those assets. The government will confiscate it and not allow it. But with cryptocurrency, you could put it literally on a flash drive, or like I said, you can just remember your seed phrase and then log into another computer anywhere in the world. It is the hardest store of value, and the hardest asset for any government to confiscate. That scenario of a government confiscating its citizens' assets, maybe not here in America, but all across the world globally, that scenario is far more likely to happen than a complete collapse of a society. Governments absolutely confiscate people's assets. You citing it right there. And Bitcoin is the hardest asset an individual can own and a government can confiscate. Bam. That's my argument. You need physical goods. I don't know. Gold and silver will always hold its value overseas. Okay. That's why arguing third world countries know the value of gold. Regards from Croatia. Hey, Croatia. Hey, thanks for joining us, Leonard. Nope, I'm mispronouncing that. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us right at the very tail end of this thing. My jaw is tired of talking. I'm going to do more of these, guys. I really appreciate everybody jumping on here, contributing your comments, making this thing going pretty successful. I mean, there are stories of people leaving countries with the cryptocurrencies, and expatriating out of countries and being able to bring millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrencies along with them. It's probably the easiest one out there for you to do that. Hello from Canary Islands. Hey, man, thanks for joining us right at the tail end. So look, guys, I really appreciate everybody jumping on here and making this a pretty successful live stream. Maybe every Monday I'll try to do this. Maybe next week I'll pull up some other news articles and try to cover it. I'm hoping by next Monday we'll know a little bit more about this Omicron variant. Things are actually looking somewhat positive for it, but we'll see how that works out. I'll pull up some of those articles next week and kind of give you guys my thin opinion on that. And yeah, we'll kind of take it from there. So everybody, appreciate you guys joining. If you are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to this channel. I do a lot of prepping and survival videos. Maybe I'll do some cryptocurrency videos, try to explain it to everybody as well, and kind of the benefits of why preppers should own cryptocurrencies and how hard it is for governments to confiscate your cryptocurrencies. Not impossible, but it does make it much harder. And yeah, be safe, everybody. And I'll see you guys next week.